In Dallas, an old fire department garage has found new life. What was once a bustling hub for fixing fire engines is now a sanctuary of history and hope. This is the Texas Fire Museum, a place where past and present collide in a symphony of sirens and stories. The building itself is part of the story. It stands on Chalk Hill Road, an expansive 125,000 square foot facility that has watched over generations of firefighting. Its brick walls and cavernous bays echo with memories of an era when Dallas's growing fleet of fire trucks needed a dedicated home. Back in 1961, this was the city's first purpose-built center for servicing and commissioning fire engines. State-of-the-art for its time, complete with heavy-duty cranes and even a 25,000-gallon underground cistern for testing pumps. For decades, it was here that Dallas Fire Department mechanics kept the city's life-saving machines in top shape. But like many workhorses of the past, the facility's prime eventually waned. In the mid-1990s, the city's apparatus maintenance moved elsewhere, and these halls fell silent. The great shop that once never slept became a mere storage warehouse, its purpose paused, its future uncertain. For a while, this proud building was little more than a dusty garage, filled with leftover parts and fading memories. Yet, as we'll see, that was not the end of its story.
My name is Jeff Jones. I'm here at the Texas Fire Museum on Chalk Hill Boulevard in Dallas, Texas. We're currently standing in the North Bay, which is the Restoration Bay, where our members here restore antique fire apparatus to support the entire institution here. The building originally was built in 1961 for the Dallas Fire Department as the maintenance facility for the Dallas Fire Department apparatus.
The building Jeff stands in was indeed born in 1961 with a noble purpose: to keep Dallas's firefighting fleet on the road. For over 30 years, this maintenance shop was the heartbeat of the city's fire rescue operations. Its large bays sheltered fire engines of all sizes, getting them repaired, refitted, and ready to answer the next alarm. This 35,000 square foot garage later expanded to a 125,000 square foot complex, was the Dallas Fire Department's first facility dedicated solely to servicing and commissioning active fire apparatus. In its heyday, mechanics hustled under 6 giant overhead hoists, and fresh paint dried in a brand new 1,500 square foot paint booth. If a pumper needed testing, they ran it in a special room built with that 25,000-gallon water tank beneath the floor. An engineer's dream setup. This place was more than a building. It was a promise that every fire truck in Dallas would be ready when lives hung in the balance. By the mid-1990s, however, the landscape had changed. The fire department relocated its maintenance operations, and the Chalk Hill facility's doors shuttered. The once lively shop spent the late 90s quietly collecting dust. It might have stayed that way, a forgotten relic, if not for a twist of fate and a group of determined dreamers. The resurrection of this old fire garage began with those who saw it not as a relic, but as an opportunity. A handful of fire history enthusiasts and antique fire truck owners peered through the cobwebs and envisioned a workshop of their own. They were members of the North Texas Historical Fire Society, local devotees of firefighting lore, and the proud owners of vintage fire engines in need of TLC. In this vacant maintenance depot, they found the perfect haven to tinker with their treasured trucks.
It was taken over by members of the North Texas Historical Fire Society for a place to do maintenance on their own trucks. Their maintenance was so great, their restorations were so good, it eventually evolved into a full-blown restoration facility and making the funds available to restore this building. Currently, we have restored the front offices. We're about to redo the bathrooms and the kitchen, and we have placed a new roof on most of the building.
In other words, the volunteers breathed life back into this sleeping giant. What started as a hobby workshop for a few antique fire engines grew into something much larger, the beginnings of a museum and restoration center. As word spread and more people brought projects, the operation snowballed. Over time, this old maintenance shop itself got a second chance at glory. The team raised money, rolled up their sleeves, and began renovating the derelict facility piece by piece. They repaired leaky roofs, refurbished the crumbling front offices, and gave new purpose to every corner of the building Jeff and his friends could manage. In fact, the entire facility was restored by volunteers, many of them the same folks turning wrenches on the fire trucks. Imagine the scene. The very bays that once echoed with the clank of city mechanics in the 60s now rang with the sounds of volunteer restorers. Some of them retired firefighters or passionate collectors, all working after hours to save a piece of history. Little by little, they transformed the space. Walls got fresh paint, lights came back on, and long idle machinery roared again. Those massive overhead cranes, they're not museum relics gathering dust. They're in use once more, hoisting antique fire engines as if the decades in between had simply melted away. The old shop had found a new purpose, guided by many of the same principles it was built for: service, repair, and a love of fire apparatus. Out of this grassroots revival, the Texas Fire Museum was born. Today, it stands as one of the few truly working museums in the nation. Step inside, and you'll be greeted by the gleaming red and chrome of meticulously restored fire engines, hose wagons, and ladder trucks from eras gone by. Over 60 antique fire vehicles, from hand-drawn hose carts of the 1800s to mighty motorized engines of the 20th century, showcase a century of firefighting progress. The museum also displays more than 500 pieces of vintage equipment and tools: leather helmets blackened by soot, brass nozzles and extinguishers, alarm bells, uniforms, and cases filled with badges and patches. There's even a dazzling array of warning lights and sirens. In fact, the world's largest collection of firefighting signal devices, blinks, and whistles here in Dallas. It's as if you've walked into a grand time capsule of fire service history, lovingly arranged for all to see. But unlike many museums, this one doesn't just display history, it creates it. If you wander toward the back of the hall, you'll find that the exhibit floor seamlessly blends into a fully functional workshop. The air might carry the scent of engine oil and fresh paint. You might hear the whir of a drill press or the clang of a hammer on metal. That's because the Texas Fire Museum is also an active restoration shop. It's not uncommon to see a half-refurbished 1940s pumper truck sitting on jack stands, mechanics in coveralls crouched underneath, bringing a rusty treasure back to life right before your eyes. This hands-on restoration happens in the same North Bay where Dallas firefighters once tuned up their rigs. Only now, the mechanics are history buffs and retired firemen working for the love of it. Visitors can literally watch history being repaired and reborn in real time.
Well, I was a volunteer firefighter in the town of Little Elm for 5 years. The department was changing. It was going full-time. It was time for me to move on, but I still loved getting on a fire truck and hearing the sirens go off. So I bought my own fire truck, and I have restored it here. I do keep my truck here at the building.
Jeff's story is one example of the passion that fuels this place. Not everyone would solve their nostalgia for the fire service by buying a fire engine, but that's exactly what he did. And he's not alone. Many of the people behind the museum are just like Jeff, former firefighters or lifelong enthusiasts who weren't ready to let their love of fire trucks and firefighting fade away. They brought their personal projects, sometimes massive four-wheeled projects, into this communal workshop. Here, they found friendship, expertise, and a shared mission. Together, they're preserving more than just machines. They're preserving the spirit of an entire profession.
And from there, I began to get a huge love for the history of fire service itself. Not only the trucks, but the men and women who have served, the heroes of the fire departments, the stations, equipment, the whole history of how fire service has evolved from Benjamin Franklin, who started the first volunteer company in Philadelphia, to the modern fire stations that we have across the country.
The museum's volunteers aren't simply fixing old engines in a vacuum. They're mindful of that sweeping history Jeff described. They know every vehicle and artifact has a larger context, a role in the evolving story of firefighting from the 18th century to today. Walk around with Jeff or any volunteer, and they'll eagerly tell you the story of each truck, which city it served, how many fires it fought, maybe even a legendary firefighter who rode it. This personal reverence for history gives the Texas Fire Museum a soul. It's not just a collection of shiny antiques. It's a tribute to firefighters and innovators across time. The work done here is painstaking. Restoring a fire engine that's decades old is no easy feat. It's equal parts mechanical skill, detective work, and artistry. Many of these rigs arrive in sorry shape. Engines frozen, pumps leaking, wiring frayed, bodywork rusted, and parts missing or long obsolete. Bringing them back to their former glory is a labor of love that can take years for a single vehicle. As Jeff and his crew will tell you, they often have to beg, borrow, and trade to find the right parts for a project. Antique fire apparatus parts aren't exactly available at the local auto shop.
Well, the biggest challenges to restoring a fire truck is finding parts. There's a limited amount of parts, so we have learned to source parts from different conventions, from different other collectors around the country, to beg, borrow, and trade what we can get. And in many situations, we have a machine shop and we make the parts ourselves. And that is the biggest challenge of the other part of restoring a truck is just not simply building a truck. You have to take apart all the stuff that's been done incorrect over the years, fix things, then clean it, paint it, put it back together. So there's a two-part process, disassembly and putting it back together.
It's a meticulous, often grueling process, like assembling a giant, life-sized puzzle with pieces that sometimes have to be fabricated from scratch. Yet, the folks here relish every minute of it. They've rebuilt engines that hadn't run in decades, hammered out dents from accident-damaged fenders, sewn up new leather seats for driver cabs, and recreated intricate gold leaf lettering on the doors of antique pumpers. When they're done, these machines don't just look brand new. Many of them actually function as they did originally. In fact, on special days, you might see one of the restored trucks rolling out the big bay door, engine rumbling proudly, perhaps headed to a community parade or a school event. The museum's pieces aren't static displays. They're living ambassadors of history. As a visitor, it's inspiring to witness. You can wander the museum's exhibition areas, marvel at a horse-drawn fire wagon from the 1880s, or climb aboard a 1950s ladder truck, and then stroll a few steps over to the restoration bay where a crew is pulling the engine out of a 1930s pumper. The Texas Fire Museum invites you not just to observe history, but to be a part of it. To see, hear, and even smell what firefighting was like in years gone by. It's this dynamic combination of museum and workshop that truly sets the place apart. The past here isn't behind glass. It's spread out on the shop floor, being polished and repaired so it can ride again. And all of it, the museum exhibits, the restoration work, the tours for school kids and families, is driven by volunteers and sustained by a community that cares deeply about preserving fire history. With so much achieved already, one might wonder what's next for the Texas Fire Museum and its historic home. For Jeff and the team, the work is far from over. In many ways, they're still just getting started. The volunteers have big plans to continue restoring both the equipment and the building that shelters it.
Once Chalk Hill Boulevard is finished being torn up by the city and being replaced, we're going to start restoration efforts on the front and exterior of the building to bring it back to like-new condition.
The museum's location on Chalk Hill Road has been undergoing road construction, but soon that project will end, and when it does, the team is poised to tackle a facelift of the building's own facade. The vision is to restore the exterior of the 1961 maintenance facility so that it looks as proud and polished as the fire engines inside. That means repairing or replacing the old brickwork, refurbishing doors and windows, maybe repainting the trim, whatever it takes to make the outside shine again as it did when firefighters first opened these bays in the 60s. It's a labor-intensive project, but given what these volunteers have already accomplished indoors, it's well within reach. They've already proven their dedication by fixing up the interior offices and infrastructure. Now they'll apply that same passion to the curb appeal. Before long, the museum building itself will stand as a monument to preservation, a sort of giant artifact that's been saved, just like the trucks it houses. Beyond the bricks and mortar, the Texas Fire Museum has its sights set on growth in other ways. The team hopes to continually expand the collection of historic apparatus and memorabilia, especially items with significance to Dallas and Texas firefighting. Each new acquisition is another piece of the puzzle in telling the complete story of fire service history. Future goals include finishing the restoration of several important fire trucks currently in the workshop queue. For example, there might be a century-old ladder truck awaiting its turn for a makeover, or a mid-century pumper that, once restored, will fill a key gap in the museum's timeline of apparatus. Every completed project means one more marvel on display for the public to enjoy. Education and community engagement are also key parts of the future. The museum already educates the public about fire safety and the heritage of fire services, but Jeff and his colleagues want to reach even more people. They're looking ahead to welcoming more school field trips, hosting special events, and maybe partnering with local fire departments for demonstrations. Since the museum is a working shop, there's an opportunity to show younger generations the mechanical arts as well, a chance to spark interest in how machines work, or even inspire someone to become a firefighter or an engineer. The leadership envisions the facility as not just a storage for old trucks, but as a living classroom and community space for all things firefighting. Support from the city of Dallas has helped secure this future. In 2020, the city extended the museum's lease on the Chalk Hill property for decades to come, effectively saying, "We believe in what you're doing. Keep doing it." This long-term stability means the museum can confidently invest effort into improvements and programming without fear of losing its home. It's a great example of a community and its government working together to preserve a unique piece of local history. Of course, all these dreams, from restoring the building's exterior to maintaining the fleet of vintage fire engines, require resources, time, labor, and yes, money. The museum runs almost entirely on volunteer effort and public generosity. That's why the future is also about growing the base of support. And here, a little humor and honesty from Jeff goes a long way.
If you want to send us a check, we'll gladly take your money. If you have any old fire equipment sitting around the house, or bells or uniforms, lights, and they're just sitting there, you're more than welcome to bring them. We have a truck here that was donated, that was an old Dallas truck, donated to the fire museum, and it didn't have a siren on it. The day after it came in the museum, this woman walked in here and said, "This is in my husband's closet. He passed away. Would you like it?" And the bolt holes matched up on a truck we got the day before. And that siren is on that truck to this day. And it's like every other piece of apparatus here. It's not just a piece of equipment. There are a lot of stories behind each one of them.
Jeff's anecdote is a perfect illustration of the museum's magic. A widow donates an old siren on a whim, and it turns out to be the missing puzzle piece that completes a historic fire engine, literally completing its voice. It's almost as if the artifacts themselves find their way home. Stories like that happen only because this museum exists, and because people care enough to contribute. Every helmet, every nozzle, every alarm bell donated comes with a story. And when it enters the collection, that story gets a new chapter. The Texas Fire Museum ensures those tales are not lost to time. Instead, they're polished up, sometimes bolted onto a truck, and shared with anyone curious enough to listen. The Texas Fire Museum is more than a hall of antique fire trucks. It's a living, breathing celebration of courage, community, and continuity. Under this roof, history isn't static or distant. You can literally touch it, hear it, and even smell it, a hint of smoke and oil mixed with old leather and polished brass. The museum stands as a testament to what a dedicated group of people can accomplish. They took a forgotten building and turned it into a time machine. They took rusting hulks of metal and turned them into roaring fire engines once more. In doing so, they've preserved the legacy of countless firefighters and given new generations a chance to appreciate how far we've come, from Ben Franklin's hand-pumped engines to today's high-tech firefighting machines. Perhaps most importantly, the Texas Fire Museum reminds us that history is not just dates and artifacts behind glass. History lives in the people and the stories we pass on. Here, every truck, tool, and uniform has a face and a tail attached, of a blaze battled, a life saved, a firefighter who hung up his helmet but never forgot the thrill of the ride. It's an inspiring place that connects us to the bravery and ingenuity of those who came before, while the active workshop connects us to the present, showing that the chain of knowledge and passion is unbroken. All that's missing from this story is you. The volunteers have restored the building and the machines. The city has lent its support. The artifacts have found their sanctuary. What remains is for visitors to come experience it and perhaps be inspired to carry the torch of history forward. In the spirit of a friendly firefighter showing you around the station, Jeff extends a personal invitation.
Please come visit us here on Chalk Hill Boulevard. We're here most weekends. We're always open to having visitors and people tour our facility.
Whether you're a family with children who want to see big red fire engines up close, a history buff eager to dive into fire service lore, or just someone looking for an inspirational outing, you'll be welcome at the Texas Fire Museum. Come wander among the shiny rigs and vintage gear. Ask the volunteers about their favorite piece. You might hear a story that stays with you. And if you're moved by what you see, consider supporting this labor of love, be it through a donation, a souvenir t-shirt, or simply by spreading the word. The Texas Fire Museum isn't just preserving old fire trucks. It's preserving the human stories and community spirit that have always ridden along. I highly recommend going there yourself to step into the past, witness the present effort, and become part of the future of this remarkable place. The doors are open, the fire trucks are waiting, and the story of firefighting is alive and well, ready to inspire the hero in all of us.
Dust hangs slow in the work bay light. Old chrome dreams of another night. A silent siren on the wall waits for voices that